So, hello everyone, and welcome once again for the last time to Global Scholar Spotlight, powered by International Study Council, where we share real scholars' journey to help future applicants prepare smarter, apply stronger, and believes in what's possible. In today's episode, we are joined by Amanda Suárez from Brazil, a trained psychologist who secured a fully funded scholarship, an Erasmus Mundus Scholarship, to study public health in disaster. And Amanda's story is especially powerful for students who come from social science backgrounds and often wonder how their experiences fits into global public health. Her journey shows that Erasmus Mundus is not about having a perfect background, it's about alignment, intention, and the ability to connect your experience to global challenges. In this conversation, Amanda breaks down how she approached her application, how she framed her story, and how she navigated doubts that many applications face today. Amanda, we are really glad to have you with us today. Thank you for joining Global Scholar Spotlight and for being willing to share your experience with future scholars. How are you? How are you feeling?
Thank you, Mahedi, for inviting me. It is very nice to share my experience with everyone. I think it's very important when we reach opportunities, we fight to make them as accessible as we can. So thank you for this amazing work and thank you for having me again. Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda. It is very nice to be here, and I hope I can, I don't know, maybe bring some new information that can help you in this journey.
Absolutely. I think there are a lot of students who are looking for information to learn from the real scholars, because this is always motivating, always inspiring to learn from the real scholars how they prepared themselves. So it definitely will help so many students who are also preparing themselves for this kind of scholarship. So Amanda, I would like to ask you with these questions like straight, it was a spinning in my head when I was like preparing the questions for you. So from psychology to public health in disaster, why, like what inspired you to as a psychologist to apply to Erasmus Mundus program in public health and disaster? Like what inspired you?
Perfect. Well, it's quite a lot, I would say.
Mhm,
But I get this question a lot as well
mhm,
because it seems quite rare, but I would say
mhm,
it's definitely very related. Um, First of all, I'm from, and I think it's very important to say that most of my
yeah,
interest in the disasters and public health theme comes from where I'm from, I would say.
mhm, mhm,
Um, Recife in Pernambuco, which is a state in the northeast of Brazil, struggled a lot with climate-related emergencies in the past centuries and still struggle a lot, especially in Recife, which is a city with increased vulnerability to climate-related impacts. And
mhm,
this also was part of like my interest. I always knew,
mhm,
actually, I was always very mobilized by the theme. I was always
mhm,
very interested in the theme, but I never saw it as a career. I didn't know it was a
mhm,
possibility back then.
mhm.
I
Okay.
remember I was the student that used to cry during like geography classes because
Mhm,
I don't know, at some point the polar
mhm,
bear used to like
mhm,
touch me somewhere in a place that I still didn't like find out what it was,
mhm,
but it was very like, I don't know, it was very
mhm.
touching for me. And
Yeah,
then
yeah, got it.
I didn't realize at the time that this might be a career in the future, but life went by. I cannot, like, I'm not sure if I know what led me to the psychology undergraduate studies, but when I was 17, I decided I was going to like uh, go through this way and I would study psychology. This was in 2019, so I got 1 year of in-person studies, and then the pandemics came, and I feel like it highlighted how
Yeah.
different crises, they don't wait for the crisis to happen, but they amplify the crisis we are already living. And
Yeah.
I remember that at the time I was invited to join while I was studying psychology. We had a
Mhm,
break until the university could adapt
mhm,
to the
mhm.
COVID,
Yeah.
like to what COVID imposed to us. And then I got an invitation from a girl who studied with me in high school to join an NGO, a charity from UK that was starting a community in Brazil called Climate Science, and they wanted to expand their activities
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Brazil. And at the time, we were 20 volunteers. We became 500. I started working voluntarily with them for 2 or 3 years. We expanded a lot. I started as HR coordinator, then I became national coordinator. And when I saw I was leaving two pathways that made much sense to me, which was like the climate agenda, the climate education, the social work. And at the same time, while I was in the university, I had an inclination, I would say, to work with public health already. So
Okay.
while the climate work was happening, I was also working in SUS, which is our universal health system in Brazil.
Yeah.
So I was doing internships, and I was also volunteering and participating in different projects at public hospitals in Brazil. And what I say that led me to this program, it's because I understood both pathways were not actually two different pathways, but they had to walk together.
Yeah.
So I started seeing the impacts of climate change, for example, during my work at the hospital,
Yeah.
and vice versa. So I
Mm.
understood that I could not take this like in a different path anymore. So I started to understand how could I better like prepare to work in the field. And also because it's a very embryonary agenda, it's still something that is growing a lot, the climate and health agenda. So I definitely found that I needed to go further to better understand how it connects and maybe bring it back to my community. I have an initiative in Brazil that works with the climate and health nexus. So that's why I got to the master's. I understood that maybe it was time to get some knowledge and maybe return to the community so that we can better deal with what I said before, because it all started to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
on the
Yeah. Yeah.
ground, on the territory.
Wow. Excellent. So I think, I mean, even though you were studied psychology, but you had your built-in interest in public health, and that's why you started looking for options, like how you can connect, how you can involve in public health activities, and then you
Mhm.
did, and then gradually you became more interested to learn academic perspective of public health, and now you're here. So if I could ask you, Amanda, like, do you remember like how did you connect your psychology background while you were applying to this program in public health? If you could share anything, like how the students from the similar background, they can also follow your strategy or techniques, if I would say.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
think first of all, psychology is a very broad area.
Yeah.
We usually think of the psychologist as someone who's going to be the typical clinical
Yes.
psychologist, and he will
Yes.
be like in a specific settings. And I
Yeah.
was from the very beginning of the undergraduate studies, I was already like in a different setting, which was the public hospitals in Brazil. So this, first of all, highlighted like my interest in public health generally, but still, I've connected a lot through my work in the climate field. I worked with mental health as
Voluntary work,
well,
right? Those are
volunteer.
voluntary. Okay. Okay.
Some
Yeah.
were, some no, but
Okay.
mainly volunteering. Um, so I volunteered in the climate agenda with mental health sometimes. So we did have like some disasters happening in Recife related to climate, and during those disasters, I volunteered with the mental health focus, and it's quite hard to be simple when explaining this, but like the climate emergency is also a public health emergency. So
Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
was like preparing for the master, I was trying to show how both of the work I've been doing, even though they don't seem necessarily public health, they are very like they're very
Yeah.
much public health as well.
Right.
Also, I forgot to say, but during my undergraduate studies, I was a researcher assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Very
so
good point. Yeah.
I did some research on the biomedical computing field.
Mhm.
My research was to basically we worked with emotion recognition to help with
Mhm.
music therapy with people with Alzheimer's disease and other major
Mhm.
neurocognitive
Yeah.
matters.
Mhm.
And it was also very linked to public health. We developed this architecture
Mhm.
for it to be applied later in public
Mhm.
um and I don't know, like
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
different settings, but mainly also related to public health and related to what Brazil is going like
Mhm.
through demographically. So it was a very important theme to be studied. So
Okay. No, I got your point. Actually, I took some time here to explain the situation here because we receive so many messages, like many students who are currently, for example, studying clinical, maybe medicine or psychology or something like that, but they want to switch into public health, but they
mhm,
don't know how to start. So I took some time here to give this message that voluntary could be one of the opportunity, like to get involved in the first place if you want to pursue your higher studies in public health, because this is how you can connect, yeah, that you are really interested, you can show your passion, and then you can also, as you mentioned, that you can also be involved in research activities, huh? So this is how they can start their preparation, and slowly they can build a profile to apply for public health and masters in disaster or any other related field.
yeah.
Thank you so much for explaining. Yeah.
No, I would just say that public health is in many activities.
Yeah.
So it's part of your application is to recognize where public health was part like of
Exactly.
your of what we've like what you've been doing. For example,
Exactly. Previous exposure.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's not that obvious, but you've
Mhm.
been working with public health related matters,
Mhm.
and this also prepares you to what you study here. So I think it's important
That's
for you
true.
to recognize where the public health are as well.
Yes. Yes, that's true. I mean, so many people, they are already involved with public health, but they don't find a clue how to relate that, how to connect
Yeah.
that. This is also important. Yeah. Yeah, you said it really right. So, Amanda, my next question to you would be building a competitive profile. So many people, they think for a fully funded scholarship, you need to have a very strong credentials, like higher CGPAs, publications, like research exposure. Like you have to be very much perfect with all these things. So, what do you think from your perspective? Do you think that these things should be very much like strong, everything in all the way? For example, CGPA, publications, research, and from your understanding, what is a good profile?
This is quite challenging actually
Yeah,
to answer because
yeah.
I feel like we have a very diverse cohort in terms of context, in terms of
Mhm,
age, in terms of backgrounds, and
mhm.
which means that we do have a lot of different profiles when talking about
Yeah.
like reaching the space.
Mhm,
Honestly, I never engaged in any of those activities thinking of
mhm.
building a profile or a CV in the
Okay.
future, but
Yeah.
I did engage in them because
Mhm,
I'm very passionate about the public health
mhm,
world
mhm,
area. And during my undergraduate studies, and I think this is very
mhm,
important if you have the opportunity to, I wanted to explore as much possibilities as I could.
mhm,
So I did try research. I do have some publications.
mhm,
I engaged in civil society activities,
mhm,
NGOs,
mhm,
charity, which started voluntarily, but then I also had access, for example, to some formal um,
mhm,
work.
mhm,
Um, I engaged in the practice of psychology in hospital settings with a clinical
mhm.
approach of it. So I did try everything because I wanted to explore as much as I can, and I think this is the time you have to do it while you're
Mhm.
in undergraduate studies. And also because I was very passionate of like about what I was doing. So that for me
Yeah.
was not something I actually thought
Mm-hmm.
of, but was definitely something that helped me a lot with my
Yeah.
application.
Yeah.
And I do think it's very important if you explore different
Mm-hmm.
types of work in the same field. For example, as a psychologist, I could definitely see what my role was in my
Mm-hmm.
research. Why, even though it was in like biomedical computing, we used to have
Mm-hmm.
contact with people, and
Mm-hmm.
we also were thinking about like emotion recognition, and we are
Yeah.
also thinking about like how this could be applied to the real world settings. And
Mm-hmm.
then in the climate field, I used to work first with education and engagement, but then I started working with health and its intersections to climate, and especially doing some work related to mental health. The same happened to the hospital. So
Mm-hmm.
it's very important, I would say, to explore the possibilities your career have, especially because before getting to know this master's program and before starting researching about it, I didn't even know this was a possibility to work in the field
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
or academically, but to work with disasters in public health, or
Mm-hmm.
for me, that is very important to intersect with climate and public health, which is something that you'll see a lot if you go to our program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I never thought it as a possibility, as I said before, but when I started
Mm-hmm.
researching for apply to the master, then I understood it as a possibility. Um, then I
Mm-hmm.
understood like how it connected to my past, and this
Mm-hmm.
is part of like what your application is going to be. But I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's very important that not only um, what people call formal
Yep.
experience is
Yep.
valid for
Yeah.
your like for you to get here, maybe the struggles you had, the contexts you've been
Mm-hmm.
through, or where you're from is also part of like what's led you
Mm-hmm.
to this
Exactly.
program. And I feel like this is
Yeah.
also part of an application. I have to say that it's not a one phase only application. You go through
Yeah.
the document, and I think we'll explore it a little bit more later.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you have an interview, and you have to be very strategic on the information you add to all of them, so that you
Mm-hmm.
can explore the maximum of your life. I'm not sure if we'll go through
Yeah.
documents later, but for example, your
Yeah.
SOP is the place where other experiences, personal
I
experiences,
mean,
can
yes,
also come.
definitely. We will be also talking about those things later. But from your point, one point I would like to mention particularly that you said that having this mindset of exploring things, like you said you were passionate about these things, you didn't care about like building a profile. It just happened along the way. So this is really good. When you are really passionate of something, you will never think of like building a profile in a strategic way, but it will be built already. So I think having this kind of exploring mindset is really important if you like aim for this kind of scholarship. Yeah, this is really important. Amanda, I know that you have another identity as a climate change activist, and you have also attended recently the COP30 in Brazil, and you are also the founder of, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correct, Salma de Clima.
Okay.
So, would you tell us a bit of your organization? Like, what do you think about it? And do you think that it has also somehow has a connection or influenced your application to get this kind of scholarship? Yeah, well, overall.
Well, 100%. I have to say that um, I understood more about the process while doing it, and I didn't have much help. So it was a very lonely process, and that's why I said I appreciate this work a lot. Because at some point I heard that leadership is a very important asset to applying for a master program.
Always, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I was not sure if this was true, but I would say this helped me a lot getting
Okay,
here.
okay,
I do have an initiative in Brazil called Saúde em Clima, perfect.
yeah.
Um, and we've been working with, as I said before, the climate and health nexus, but we do work with health literacy in the face of climate change
Mhm,
because we understand that this increase people's participation in decision making, and we understand that climate and health cannot be decided without those who are most affected by it. And I think I really believe the pandemics showed us how collectively
mhm,
this must be thought. And
Yeah.
also because we believe that people can better interact with health challenges that are increased by climate change when they have access to health literacy. So that's what we've been working with in Brazil mainly, but hopefully maybe in the future we can expand. And we do have different projects, but I feel like this helped me a lot. Many classes we have,
Hmm.
I can relate to past experience we had at
Yeah.
Saúde em Clima because we'll learn about uh, the academic side, the framework part of like disasters content, but we'll also learn a lot about like what we do on the ground, on the territories, how we should work
Hmm.
on the field. So it's a very like diverse master in this matter as well. And
Hmm.
we've been doing work in the field for the past
Hmm.
years. So this definitely prepared me a lot, not only because it's a leadership role that adds to my CV, but definitely because the experience on the ground is the most valuable one in my perspective. I think it's very important that you learn to act with ethic, for example, in the territory,
Hmm.
but the territory is what teaches us 100%. And yeah, we did work with children and mental health. We developed an assessment based on a methodology that we had with them with 350 kids from Recife regarding climate change and health with
Hmm.
producers. So it was a very diverse, we have a very diverse public that we usually are close to,
Hmm.
and we learned a lot from this. And this
It's
is a
okay,
huge
fine. Yeah, I think we will just cut out for a second. Yeah, that's fine.
this is a
Please go
huge
ahead.
asset, I would say. It's a
Hmm.
huge source of knowledge. And as I said before,
Hmm.
sometimes it will be very hard for me to translate um, how important is this
Hmm.
work I've been doing, for example, because sometimes it didn't have a formal name, or because sometimes
Hmm.
it was volunteers, sometimes it was not. And how can I communicate it effectively in a way that people understand how, um, even though sometimes it's not something that is like, oh, I
Hmm.
was part of this huge NGO, I was part of this huge company. No, I had my own initiative in Brazil, but this had an impact. I learned a lot from this. And how can I better communicate this to be a part of my application? This was
Yeah.
the most challenging part.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think, yeah, you mentioned it really right. Like leadership skill is one of the like core public health competences that really that all the public health leaders they have to have these skills. And especially, this kind of scholarship, at least this is what I believe, the reviewers, when they see the applications, they also want to see the applicants how they will contribute in the class. So if you have this kind of leadership exposure, definitely, as we see, for example, if you have this experience, you can also contribute in the class. So we don't only learn from the professors, from the teachers, we also learn from our peers as well. So I think this is really crucial when someone wants to apply for a fully funded scholarship. Having this kind of leadership skills and having been exposed to this kind of leadership activities, this is really, really important. It helps them a lot, I think. And Amanda, would you encourage like students to get involved in this kind of leadership activities? I mean, maybe it would not be possible for everyone to build or to found an organization, but in any way or another, do you think that they should also be involved in this kind of activities?
Mm. My immediate answer would be yes,
Okay,
100%.
okay.
But I understand, for example, volunteering is a
Mhm,
privilege in many cases.
mhm,
So yes, but it can be quite challenging as well. For example, for me, I don't have a business background or a managing background, so it
mhm,
definitely like has some challenges regarding how to manage and like an initiative. How can we make that formal? How can we have access to funding, for example? So there will
mhm,
be challenges in the way, but especially for me, what happened is that I saw
mhm,
that climate and health was growing in specific spaces, limited spaces, spaces where
Mhm.
accessibility is not that increased. And I understood that something has like had to be made.
Mhm.
And that's why Saúde em Clima was founded, for example. So if you see a
Okay.
gap, I would definitely encourage you to do it because it's necessary. And for me, for example, it's full of meaning. Like,
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I can see the passion in your eyes as well when you talk about it. And I really hope that one day, Samate Klima, it will be one of the most important initiative in terms of climate change and health. Yeah, and I would also be interested in future to be part of your initiative if it's possible, or if there's any opportunity comes up. I would also love to be part of your initiative as well. Yeah, my all the best wishes for you, Amanda, for your
thank you.
organizations. So, Amanda, we were talking about SOP, like you mentioned, that few documents that we need throughout the application process. And one of the most important document is called SOP or Statement of Purpose. And many students, they have many confusions about writing an SOP, like how to write a standard SOP, how to write a convincing SOP. Like, in YouTube or somewhere, I see so many confusing videos that makes more confusing to the students, like how to start their SOP. So, from your perspective, would you please guide us a little bit? How did you write your SOP, or what are the components that you think that the students they should keep in their mind while they are writing their SOP? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
Of course, of course.
Yeah.
Um, SOPs can be very different depending
Mhm.
on the program you're applying to, because some of them
Yes,
you very limited words, like you have
exactly.
like short space to tell about like
Yeah.
how you got to this point, because I feel like that's what SOP is gonna be about. What
Yes.
led you to
Mhm.
being interested in the master program, for example, or in the master's program subject.
Mhm.
So they can be very diverse.
Mhm.
I think it's important to say in practical terms that I applied to some programs in the US before applying to European programs, to this one
Mhm.
specifically. So I
Okay.
did had some SOPs ready before
Mhm.
this applying to Erasmus Mundus ones, but they were all the same process, I would say. But those ones, I had more words than the Erasmus Mundus words. So for me, it was very challenging to understand. As you can
Yes.
see, I talk a lot.
Yeah.
So it was very challenging to reduce the words and still talk about my story. But what I also, as I said before, the it was very lonely, the
Mhm.
application process for me. So I was
Okay.
getting guidance on the internet, especially on YouTube, and I
Okay.
did watch some videos. One
Mhm.
that I thought it was very nice for me. It was one that said like, you should understand how your past
Mhm.
led you to this present, which is you wanting to join their program, and what's your future? How does your future look like if you have the master's program on it? How it would contribute to future activities. And one thing that I understand that it is very important to say is that making them understand that investing in you is investing in multiple impacts. And that was something very important to me. Like it was very centered in me, of course, because I feel that you will have to go like through your past, through your motivations, through your passions, and understand how it got you and led you to this point. And this is a process that is important for you to have. Uh, but it's also about how you will like make it resonate, like how you make it reach other people, how this would impact a broader scenario. And so that was one of my strategies, I would say. And yes, this one of understanding your past, focusing on your present, and thinking of how the masters would contribute to your future. It is something very important. For me, it was definitely challenging to understand how I would contribute to the program. So my SOPs were not focused on that. They were actually more focused on what led me to this interest. And there was a lot of personal experience there as well. Why, like, and I always talked a little bit about like how these both words that I said before, just like Hannah Montana, they matched, and how I plan to continue working with that, but I still um, understood that a formal background of master, an academic side would be very necessary and would benefit my story and the stories of the ones I impact a lot. So mine was mainly focused on that, and it worked. So I feel like the SLP, first of all, is very personal. I know we have a lot of models everywhere, but I feel like this, you're the best one to know what has to be there. One important tip I would say is that you have your CV. You're gonna send your CV. So the SLP is not the space for you to copy and paste your CV. It's not about
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
try to explore what your CV cannot cover.
Yes. Yes. Wow. No, I mean, you mentioned very good points, Amanda. You said like there are no like set in stone structure for SOP actually. It depends on the program that you're applying, as we mentioned, and also it depends on the university. Sometimes they give you a limit of words that you can write in your SOP. For example, in this program, I remember that they have set a limit like 250 words. So you have to write your SOP in 250 words. So this is really challenging. But then again, how we can do it, as you said, that I mean, you structured it very simply, like past, present, future. I mean, just write down what did you do in your past, like what are the experience that you have, and what are you doing now, or how this program will help you in the future. So these kind of things you can connect to your SOP. I think, I mean, and one of the also very important point you mentioned that your SOP has to be personal, because I see there is a tendency, like many students, they go to artificial intelligence, for example ChatGPT, and they ask them, hey, write me an SOP for this program. I mean, I think this is the last thing that students can do, because you are risking your whole application. You are doing a
Yeah.
lot of efforts. You're working hard to applying for a program. But if you write your SOP through like ChatGPT or any other artificial intelligence, you're just risking yourself. You're just gambling, because AI can never tell your story, your personal story, like how it
Uh,
connect with you personally.
Can I share something? It's
Please,
also
please. Yeah.
about my SLP, but
Yeah.
uh, first, a very important point, many of the universities and most of the programs, they have a AI policy.
Hmm.
So be careful with that, I would say. Uh,
Okay.
that's the first point. But the second one is that I started my SLP with a song from a Brazilian singer from the Northeast. It was risky, I would say. Like I didn't see many models on the internet that would start with a song, for example.
Mhm.
But I did, and I really want to highlight this past experience I had, and that's why I said exploring is very important, because when I was doing research during my undergraduate studies, I was doing research in biomedical computing, and I had a scholarship for like research assistants. Um, but they had like they classified people like health sciences, social
Mhm.
sciences, engineer, and I was part of the engineering
Mm.
people, and they had an event where we had to show the results of the research we developed in the year we had the scholarship. And I remember everyone had the same slides, the same like type of presentations with a lot of numbers and everything. And I was so scared because mine, they were like figures and, like it was very related to my work and how I conducted it. But I was a
Okay.
psychologist. I was someone who was working like on the field as well. So mine was completely different, and I was so scared. I remember I text my supervisor like I know there was not a template because I
Yeah.
researched about it. Of course, I had all the information before getting there, but still, apparently there was some rule like that was not a rule, but everyone followed it. And I remember I was very scared. I left it feeling like maybe it was not good enough, and I received the award for like young scientists for the
Wow.
engineers with
Wow.
this presentation. And that definitely encouraged me to continue working the way I was doing.
Exactly. That's true. Yeah. That's a very good example. I mean, very good
Yeah.
instances that you've shared. So Amanda, the next thing that we'll be talking about, this is also one of the very important like requirement to apply this kind of scholarship, which is like English proficiency test, you know, IELTS or TOEFL. And many students they really hard like struggle with getting a standard score or something.
Yeah.
So, do would you have any suggestions or tips like how to make a good score in IELTS or TOEFL, or how was your journey? If you could tell us a little bit of your journey, like was it easy for you, or like how did you prepare yourself for IELTS or TOEFL? If you could recall your journey, yeah.
Well, I started going through knowing more about applications in September, as I said, because I was applying to some US schools as well, and they have a more tight deadline. Usually, they have a different deadline, which is earlier than European ones. Generally, not all of them. So I started like going through through the web pages and everything in September.
Mhm.
Well, I wouldn't be the best example when talking about like proficiency tests because I
Mhm.
didn't prepare a lot, but I was
Okay.
fortunate enough to have access to English classes from when I was very young.
Hmm.
And I
Okay.
was also working at international organizations such as Climate Science, Global Assembly, and other organizations. I volunteered or worked. Um, so what I prioritized, and I would say this is important to get to know the deadlines and how long it takes for you to get the documents back,
Yeah. Yeah.
was having the documents fast. So what I did
Mhm.
was scheduling like the TOEFL. I did the TOEFL
Mhm.
IBT.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, I schedule it to as soon as possible. So I had like
Mhm.
5 to 4 days to prepare
Mhm.
for the test.
Mhm.
Um, and I did it. But as I said
Mhm.
before, I was fortunate enough to have English classes from when I was very young. So English
Mhm.
was not my main concern, I would
Concern.
say.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, what I did a lot was practice. TOEFL is not like an exam only about English knowledge, but it
Mhm.
has its structure, and you do have to
Yeah.
practice a lot because you will understand how the exam work, and that will
Mhm.
make your life 100%
Mhm.
easier, not easy.
Okay.
And that's what I did for 5 days, like in a
Mhm.
row. I
Okay.
practice it. I have some tips regarding TOEFL.
Mhm.
I know for our program, the IBT, you have to score 79, but there is
Mhm.
one important thing that I would say, please focus on that, is that you have to get a minimum of 20
Mhm.
on the writing.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
do
This
I
is
say that?
yeah.
Because I scored the maximum in listening and reading, I would say, and almost the
Mhm.
maximum in speaking.
Mhm.
However, I was too focused on not doing a model of
Mhm.
text of an essay in the writing part, and I wanted to do a very quality text, and
Mhm.
I didn't have time to finish.
Mhm.
So I left my
Oh.
essay
Mm.
unfinished.
Okay.
And that didn't like my score was lowered when compared to the others because
Okay.
of that, because I didn't
Yeah.
do time management
Mhm.
properly in the writing part. And I don't think I understood it was very important because most of the programs will ask you for a minimum in the writing part. The
Yeah.
others, no, or sometimes yes, but the writing part is the most important one, and it was the one that I neglected. It worked. I scored over 20.
Mhm.
Uh, but I would say this is something to keep in mind. Even though it's the final one you're going to be doing, please don't neglect it. And I feel like different from the SOP models will definitely help in this one because it's an
Mhm.
exam.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're very much right. I mean, some universities they don't care about the scores that you achieve in other modules, but when it comes to writing, they set it. Okay, you have to have at least 20 or 6.5 or 7. Otherwise, even if you have like very good score in the other modules, you will not be eligible to apply to their program if you have lower scores in writing. So academic writing is really important. And you're also like absolutely right. It's not easy actually to score a very good score in academic writing. It needs a lot of practice. It's a lot of time. So whoever is thinking, okay, IELTS or TOEFL, it's nothing. I will just sit and get the right score. I can tell you that for writing, especially, you need to practice. At least you need to give some time. You need to practice, and then maybe you will be able to achieve your dream score. Otherwise, it will not be easy to get the good score.
Yeah.
Wow. So Amanda, then we were talking about all the process that how we prepare our documents, how we apply, how we write our SOP, and all those things. And then finally, when we apply, and like the lucky people like you who get selected for the next stage, then it comes to like interview, right? Like many program, they have their own set of interview process. So would you tell us a little bit of your experience from the interview that you faced? And is there anything the students who will be facing the interview, they should also keep their mind while they're facing the interview from your experience? Yeah,
Of course.
please.
And it's a very
Yeah.
important step, I would say as well. My pro tip would be to listen to a very powerful song before the
Okay.
interview. That's what happened to me, and it did help me a lot.
Hall of
But
Fame or I'm unstoppable.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just giving some clue.
So
All right.
trust me,
Yeah.
it's very good. It's a very good tip.
Okay.
But before I did my interview, I asked a friend from another Erasmus Mundus program how was her interview because she successfully made it.
Mhm.
And she told me, "Oh, Amanda, don't worry.
Mhm.
They will ask you about you, your background, how did you get here, and how can
Mhm.
you contribute to the cohort, to the
Mhm.
program, but it's nothing technical."
Mhm.
And that was it. First, let me say, interviews are
Mhm.
very diverse as well. Even in the same program, I know I've talked to many friends from our master's program, and they say like their interview was this and the other was that. And I would love to like to share my experience, but it's important to highlight that this is not going to be the same experience for everyone. For me, what happened to me is that they first asked me about my background, but this was just the very beginning of the interview. And then after that, they would like to understand if I had like a specific work in the disasters field.
Okay.
And of course, as I said before, sometimes it's a little challenging to explain how
Mhm.
everything I've been doing in a
Yeah.
short time because it will not have
Yeah.
like as much time as we have here, for example.
Yeah. Right.
How can
Right.
I explain how this relates to disasters and everything? Um, it's not, I'm not sure if it is required for you to have directly worked in disasters. I don't think it is because I know people come from very diverse backgrounds. But this was
Mhm.
something they asked. And after that, they were asking about what I know from the disasters field, like what
Mhm.
were the level of knowledge I had, or how much I knew about contexts in the
Mhm.
like different parts of the world, what was happening related to the matter of the masters. This is
Mhm.
important to like I remember that I've been working in the climate field, so I knew everything about climate related disasters. But then they asked
Mhm.
me about conflicts, and I was
Mm.
like,
Wow.
wow,
Okay. Mhm.
of course. You see that many things are intersect, so you can elaborate on that. But it's very important for you to know what's happening in the world as well, because this
Mhm.
is a very important part of our job and of our studies. So that's mainly how my interview went. First background, then how my work directly relates to the disasters field and public
Mhm.
health, but mainly the disasters field because it's not only a public health studies, it's a public health
Mhm.
and disasters, and then
Interesting.
my knowledge, my general knowledge about disasters.
Okay. Okay. Wow. How did you feel? Like, did you feel nervous or like, many students they get nervous. And was there like a lot of interviewer asking you questions? And how did you tackle the situation?
um I was nervous, yes,
Hmm.
but personally I was
Hmm.
very excited
Hmm.
and very passionate about the subject, as I said before. And I try not to usually we try to prepare a lot for this type of interviews, but I for this one I was counting on the like knowledge and the experience I had before. Because as we
Okay.
said during this
Yeah.
interview, that's the most important part. And that's where you get your knowledge from as well. So this will help me like understand all my answers through the interview.
Hmm.
I'm not kidding when I say that my the
Exactly.
song helped me a lot because I was very empowered by Wesley Safadão. You Brazilians will know who
Ah,
he is. It's
okay.
not a typical song that you will listen in formal settings, but it was very like good to me. And
Hmm.
honestly, I was so interested in the subject and so
Hmm.
interested in the master as well that I
Hmm.
went very like I want to make
Wow.
this happen,
Yes.
which is not normal to me. Okay, this is not common. I usually get very nervous in the situations, but I don't know this one specifically. Maybe it was meant to be, if we believe in that.
No, I think, yeah, I think as you mentioned, for example, one of the way to look at it that you are in this interview stage because you are capable, like your profile really stand out. So I think one of the way that you can like keep motivated or you don't feel nervous thinking like that, hey, I am strong enough, that's why I'm here, so now I just need to prove it. I think that's how you can keep yourself motivated as well, because you already made it, as you said, and you have enough experience. You already convinced them, so now they just need the proof. They want to listen from you that okay, whatever you mentioned in your SOP or CV, if those things are right, right? So
Yeah.
I think yeah, this is absolutely good. And you
Um,
also mentioned, yeah,
one
please.
thing, no, one thing that it's I think it's good to say because it's people on the other side of the camera, and you see it's
Yeah,
going to be a conversation. And
yeah.
this made me like I felt relieved when they talked to me like a conversation would be. And second, I left the interview thinking it was awful. So I started very not confident. I was
Mhm,
insecure, but I knew that I
mhm,
would talk about things that I've been doing for the past
mhm,
years.
mhm,
But I left the interview like, I'm not sure if it was perfect. And as we said before, it's not about being perfect. It for those who are not native English speakers, this would be an insecure as well. For me, it
mhm.
was.
Okay.
Um, but as long as you can communicate, you already have your
Mhm.
TOEFL there. That's it.
Yeah, right. Wow. Amanda, we are actually approaching the end of our today's interview session. So before we close, I would ask you like two last questions. So many students, they are really interested about the Erasmus program, but then again, they are also a little bit concerned about mobility. You have to travel from one university to another university, from one country to another country. So what do you think? Like, since you have been taking classes is for a while. So from your experience, like how has it been for you academically, culturally, like studying with international peers in a global health program, and how is your overall experience? Like who are concerned about it? Would you motivate it like to experience this, or what is your comments on that?
100% again. I would definitely
Okay.
encourage people to go through this experience. First, because it will learn a lot, not only inside the classroom, but outside it. For example, I'm trying to learn Spanish while we're here in Spain.
Okay.
Um, so it's a one of a kind opportunity, and it's one of the reasons why I chose this program as well.
Okay. Wow.
Because I understand that, as I said before, you're not learning only in formal settings, you're also learning through different experiences. So this was one of the reasons why I chose Erasmus Mundus, of course. Um, of course, it can be challenging, and it depends on how familiar you are, for example, to this type of situations. I've been through global conferences. I used to work at or volunteer at different global initiatives. So for me, it was a little more familiar to be in contact with people from different cultures, different countries, and everything. And I love it. I already knew I loved it. When I came here, I was fortunate enough to find the best classmates and also the best flatmates ever. So I
Okay.
found an amazing place to stay. We have a scholarship that cover your costs. So I found a very nice flat with very nice people, with very nice classmates. So it's definitely an opportunity for you to connect with other people, with other culture, and learn more. As I said before, they have very diverse backgrounds. So you'll not learn from them because they're from different countries or different cultures, but you learn from them because they have a very diverse background, and people have a lot of experience here. So it's amazing to be where we are.
Okay.
Prepare as much as you can because there will be a lot of changes. For example, for me, I do therapy with my psychologist weekly. This is part of, for me, is part of the process. Again, we have the scholarship to cover some costs. And I would say for me, it has been a great, if not the greatest experience.
Wow, excellent. I hope students they will be really motivated after listening to you. I mean, who are having this concern that okay, maybe moving from places it might be difficult for them, but there are a lot of like pros that you will gain out of this mobility and out of this program. And also, Amanda, a follow-up questions like many students they say that Erasmus Mundus is also very good for networking because you have like professors from like so many backgrounds, so many diverse fields, and from different universities. Like it's not just from only one university. So how do you see that? Like, do you really think that this is also a very good way of connecting with professors or very good source of networking?
Um, yes, 100% again. Um, I'm not, and I'm being very open-hearted here about
Okay.
like processes because I understand that people might identify. I'm not the networking person.
Okay.
I do struggle a lot with that, I would say. But you definitely have access to people who are working in the public health and disasters field more than you will have in other programs. Maybe I didn't have the experience, so I cannot compare. But for example, here in Spain, we have one professor each week from a different place or a different organization or a different university, as Mahedi said before. So you do have contact with many people who have important experiences and who might be a very good connection. And also, your assignments can also be developed in partnership with one of those organizations as well as the thesis. So this is a very important part. of the masters. Like, even though you're not a networking person like me, you have the opportunity to get to know these amazing people who are in the front line of what we're studying.
Okay, wow. Amanda, the last questions to you. Uh, do you have any advice for the students who are applying with they have a lot of doubts, okay, if I would be selected or not, or they're thinking maybe their background is not perfect enough to get them this scholarship, or who lack publication or major achievements, huh? So, or sometimes it's also overwhelming to deal with the process, to meet the deadlines, to collect all the documents, who are like following the process. Do you have any last tips for them to keep themselves focused and like calm and to believe in the process? Do you have any last thing to say?
I would like to start saying that it's not an easy process, and I feel like this is important for us to have. And it is a process. So, for example, I was working while I was doing my application process, and I
Mhm,
struggled to understand that this was something very like that would take me time. For example, this was also building something. So,
mhm,
first of all, recognizing that this takes time,
mhm.
and but this is also you building something,
Yeah.
even though you don't see the direct results soon because it takes a
Mhm,
while, I would say. And second of all, recognizing that we don't all have access to the same opportunities in our studies or in our backgrounds and everything. And this is also part of the diversity of the program. So I
yeah.
would say definitely try, explore. Um, as I said before, different experiences count. Different experiences will definitely increase your access to the agenda, your knowledge about the field. While edu there can be very personal, and that's okay. Part of it will have to be very personal, and this also counts. And I would say my next and maybe the most important tip is try to make this a shared process. As I said before, for me, it was very lonely. You don't have to share with the whole world because I didn't
Mhm,
actually.
mhm, mhm,
Uh, and this has a lot to do with your beliefs, for example. But
mhm,
try to find support because it can be very challenging, as I said, very time
mhm,
consuming.
mhm,
It's also a process of understanding everything you've been doing in the past and how satisfied you are with it and how others will be satisfied with it as well. So it can
mhm.
it, it can touch you in many places during
Yeah.
it.
Mhm,
And as much as you can share this with your support system or with
mhm.
anyone you understand that is important or a mentorship or whatever, I would
Yeah.
say this is important. And also share your accomplishments when they come.
Absolutely, Amanda. I think, yeah, you mentioned a very good point, like to stay in touch with people who have already been through the journey, like mentorship or like get advice from them, and also take support, like share these things with your peers or family members or friends who are also having the same journey. Yeah, and I think overall believing in the process, because sometimes it might get be a bit overwhelmed, but believing in yourself, I think this is really key. And another important point, Amanda, you mentioned the diversity. I mean, I know that the whole world is not that privileged in the same way, right? So, for example, students from my country is not the same way privileged students from the UK or USA or Canada, like some other countries. So, I think this kind of thing, the reviewers, they really take into consideration, they really take into account. And as well as we also see these things in the class, that our class is full of diversity. We are only 25 students, and there are like I think more than 17 nationalities our students are there. So don't think like maybe you will not, your profile is not competent enough, based on the standard, like global standard. But I think the reviewers, they do recognize that, they do take this into things into account before when they make the decision. Wow. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you so much for sharing your journey with such depth and honesty. Your experience clearly shows that meaningful applications are built through reflection and preparation and a clear sense of purpose, not just titles or grades. Huh? So, to everyone who's watching, Amanda's story is a reminder that your academic background does not limit your future. What matters is how well you understand the program, how clearly you express your motivation, and how intentionally you prepare your documents. On behalf of Global Scholar Spotlight, and thank you for being part of this episode. We hope this conversation helps you gain clarity, confidence, and directions as you prepare your own applications. As we wrap up this final episode, Amanda, you're lucky we are concluding these episodes with you because we have been doing this for the last couple of months. We interviewed like six or almost seven scholars, and we shared their journey to inspire the next global scholars who are also preparing themselves. So we hope this conversation really helps. This program really helped the students to gain clarity, confidence, and directions as they are also preparing for their own. So this series was created to remind you that every successful scholar once had doubts, questions, and also moments of uncertainty, just like you. So what made the difference was preparation, persistence, and the encouragement to apply. So thank you for being part of Global Scholar Spotlight. We hope these stories continue to guide you as you take your next steps toward a fully funded global education. And thank you once again, Amanda, for sharing your such insightful journey for our future scholars.
Thank you, Mehedi, for having me here. Hopefully we'll see you on the like next programs next year. I'm very excited for that. Thank you.
Sure, definitely. Thank you so much.